I'm Dwight Drummond. Tonight, the latest on cases of severe hepatitis in children that are now being detected in the GTA.
Is this something new? Or is this something where we still have to try to figure out what causes these cases?
The Hospital for Sick Children has identified 7 cases of the illness. Researchers are probing the possible link to a mysterious worldwide outbreak. Plus,
we had a broken window. I didn't know there was more incident going on in the neighborhood. This is quite concerning.
Frustrated business owners and residents are trying to get answers after a series of break-ins in the St. Lawrence market area. And
it totally invested in 4 projects. It's come to 200,000. And we totally lost it.
Years after a number of GTA investors lost millions in a mortgage investment scheme, their lawyer has been disbarred. Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children is reporting 7 cases of severe acute hepatitis. They were all identified between last October and April of this year and may be linked to an unexplained outbreak impacting children in countries right around the world. Kelly Yoon has the details.
We are still early in the phase of the investigation. I would not want parents to be alarmed.
Dr. Upton Allen, Chief of Infectious Diseases at Sick Kids, reassuring families today, saying the 7 cases do not necessarily represent a surge.
That would be consistent with what we've seen before. So we're not there yet to be able to definitively say that this represents a new signal.
They are, however, very closely acute hepatitis in youth. In the 70% of them have been linked to the adenovirus, a common cold virus.
The leading hypotheses remain those which involve adenovirus, but I think with also still an important consideration about the role of COVID as well, either as a co-infection or as a past infection.
In Israel, for example, one children's hospital reported 7 cases, with the only common link being each patient faced a previous bout of COVID.
I don't think the answer is a simple smoking gun here.
Infectious diseases specialist Dr. Zain Chagla says there are many complexities and still much to be discovered.
Why now and why, in the context of certain countries, not others, the context of certain time frames and not others. There's behavior, there's exposure, there's the virus themselves, there's the host and other methods, there's the environment they live in.
Besides being rare, doctors say severe hepatitis doesn't suddenly appear and are encouraging parents to be on the lookout for common symptoms.
That would include predominantly jaundice, so yellowing of the skin and the eyes. Other signs to look out for would be pale stool, and then nausea, vomiting, or abdominal pain.
The Public Health Agency of Canada has not yet provided information on how many cases are being investigated Canada-wide. The WHO is currently working with all regions to determine possible links. Kelly Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
A second woman who alleges she was sexually assaulted by Canadian musician Jacob Hogarth testified at his sex assault trial today. The former frontman for the band Headley has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson is covering the trial and has the latest, but first, a warning that this story contains graphic details.
On day 7 of the sexual assault trial of Jacob Hogarth, the second of his accusers took the stand. The Ottawa area woman, whose name can't be revealed because of a publication ban, shared her story with CBC News in 2018. She said she met Hogarth at a downtown Toronto hotel in November of 2016, and that it was there that he proceeded to rape her, an ordeal she says lasted for hours. She said she told him no, stop, and that he's hurting her, but that he was just patting my head and telling me that I was a good girl and to be quiet and it would be over soon. She said Hogarth spat on her and choked her with 2 hands and that she worried she would die. She, like the first accuser, also said the encounter left her bleeding. The 2 testimonies shared other similarities of alleged assaults too.
The eerie similarities here is that Mr. Hogarth, once they enter the hotel rooms, becomes Jekyll and Hyde, becomes a monster, confuses consensual, non-violent sex with the oral, vaginal, and anal rape that these women detail.
Inconsistencies between the accuser's account to the police back in 2018 and her testimony today formed the basis of the defense team's cross-examination this afternoon. Hogard's attorneys also questioned why she didn't leave the hotel room, which was unlocked, or call for help. Her response: you can't leave the room when you're being raped. The cross-examination continues tomorrow. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
A former Toronto pastor has lost an appeal against his conviction for manslaughter in the drowning death of his pregnant wife. The Ontario Court of Appeal also dismissed Philip Grandine's appeal of the 15-year prison sentence handed to him in January 2020. Anna Carissa Grandine was 20 weeks pregnant when she drowned in the couple's bathtub in 2011. Tests revealed the 29-year-old had a sedative in her blood despite not having been prescribed it. Court heard she had discovered her husband had been having an affair. Philip Grandine was initially charged with first-degree murder and convicted of manslaughter in 2014. However, he won a new trial on an appeal. He was again convicted in February 2019 and launched a second appeal after being sentenced. The Court of Appeal dismissed the latest appeal. A series of break-ins in the St. Lawrence market area has residents and businesses there on alert. As Alicia San reports, there's concern not enough is being done to stop the problem.
Another day, another smashed window along the Esplanade.
Someone had to use quite a force to break that window. It's a strong window.
About a dozen storefronts around the St. Lawrence market have been broken into recently. Some businesses have been hit twice in the last 2 weeks.
The police did assure me that, it's probably one of the random situations.
It's happening in a time where businesses are just starting to dig themselves out of losses incurred by the pandemic. Now to have to spend hundreds to replace a window.
Yeah, it's going to be a cost that's going to add up to the bottom line. And that I'm concerned for the neighborhood.
So how are you feeling just knowing that this is kind of going on in your neighborhood right now?
Yeah, especially with like a small baby, it's not great.
What do you think is going on?
I'm not really sure. Maybe it's just 2 years of people feeling really stressed. A lot of, built up issues with mental health and lack of support and care. It's definitely a little unsettling, but I'm more concerned for the businesses, if anything.
At the cafe where this happened, the suspect used a device that breaks glass, usually reserved for emergencies. But here the suspect made off with the cash register after breaking in. Linda Leisner is the building manager of this cafe, which doesn't want to be identified for fear of being targeted a third time. She says this has been going on for far too long.
In our series of buildings that I'm sort of responsible for, maybe 4 weeks, and almost every retail store along the street near us and up the next street along, Princess and Esplanade, almost every single one of them has had their door smashed.
She says local leaders have been ineffective.
On one, maybe more occasion, have not had any responses yet. Let's just leave it at that.
Some blame area homeless shelters. Others don't know where to turn.
If I had the answer, I would solve it.
Toronto police are investigating, pulling security camera footage, while business owners in the St. Lawrence market area clean up the glass, wondering who might be next. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A man is dead in what police say was a targeted shooting in the city's northwest end last night. It happened around 8:30 near Jane and Wilson. Police say callers reported hearing multiple shots in the area. Officers arrived to find a man with gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead on scene. The victim has not been identified yet. Investigators say the suspect fled through the parking lot of the nearby Sheridan Mall, where he carjacked a vehicle. That car is a black 2022 Toyota Corolla with the Ontario license plate CVZW153. And a cyclist was taken to hospital with serious injuries after being struck by a vehicle in Mississauga. It happened just before 8 this morning at Dundas and Mississauga Road. Police say the adult cyclist was walking his bike in the crosswalk when he was hit. The vehicle that struck the man left the scene but later returned. No word yet on charges against that driver. More than 5 years after a CBC investigation revealed dozens of GTA investors lost millions in a syndicated mortgage investment, the investor's lawyer has been disbarred. The Law Society of Ontario's tribunal found the lawyer who was supposed to guide his clients through the investment process instead had been deliberately dishonest with them and failed to protect their financial assets. Ryan Patrick Jones has more.
It's been several years since friends Margaret and Alexander Wong invested more than $150,000 each in a syndicated mortgage scheme that went bust. The retirees never got their money back.
We totally invested in 4 projects. It's come to 200,000. And we totally lost it.
We lost quite a lot of money. This affects our life.
In 2017, CBC Toronto reported that more than 100 people from the GTA's Chinese-Canadian community were out nearly $9 million after they invested in developments pitched by Black Bear Homes, which was controlled by convicted fraudster Gary Fraser. Many were turned on to the opportunity by Dominic Ha, then a mortgage agent who some of the investors knew from church. The money was supposed to fund the renovation and construction of homes in the Lake Erie community of Crystal Beach, near Niagara Falls. Investors were promised lucrative returns on their money. But CBC obtained ledgers showing the investors were being paid interest out of their own principal investments. Eventually, the money ran out. Now, the lawyer who represented 84 people who contributed more than $7.7 million has been disbarred. Christopher DiGiacomo didn't tell his clients he registered other mortgages for construction financing ahead of theirs. So when Black Bear Homes defaulted, the properties were sold and there wasn't enough money left to pay back investors like Margaret and Alexander Wong.
I hope they will stick to their decision to revoke his license. The lawyers has totally ignored his obligations to serve his client, the interests of his clients.
In its decision, a Law Society of Ontario tribunal found that DiGiacomo never explained the contracts or their risk to clients, that he failed to protect their investments and put the interests of Black Bear and his own father before his clients. The tribunal concluded, quote, "The extent of the misconduct spans the gamut of violations of a lawyer's fundamental duties and obligations." In his submissions, DiGiacomo argued his actions were the result of extreme incompetence and claimed he didn't understand who his clients were. He declined to comment through his lawyer because he's appealing the decision. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
A group of family lawyers are calling on the Attorney General to reverse an Ontario Superior Court decision that will mandate all court sessions to return to in-person from virtual.
We're of the view that all family court hearings should be remote presumptively and attendance in person if counsel agree or if necessary directed by the judge.
Lawyers were notified in April that some cases would return to in-person. The Ontario Superior Court of Justice tells CBC News the actual process for each case remains subject to the discretion of the court. Lawyers say the change will mean less access to justice and higher legal costs for many clients. An online petition has sparked more than 1,000 signatories calling on virtual access to continue. In what could be the most pivotal game of the playoffs so far, our Leafs are hoping to grab hold of this series tonight. The Buds taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 5 after a 7-3 blowout loss on Sunday. Greg Ross is outside. Actually, Greg, you're inside Scotiabank Arena tonight. It feels like neither team has really been able to hold onto the momentum, Greg, so far in this series.
Yeah, we've seen some incredible momentum swings, and we've watched as the Leafs have put on this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde act for this series. We've seen the best of the Leafs, like in Game 1 here at Scotiabank Arena, where they came flying out of the gates, and they got off to such a great start in this series. But we've also seen the worst of the Leafs, like in Game 4 in Tampa on Sunday, where the Leafs were thoroughly dominated by the Lightning. The question is, which Leaf team is going to show up here tonight? There's no doubt they're going to have to be ready to go right from the opening faceoff.
Whichever team has come out and had a good start has usually dictated the game in the first 4. So obviously that's important.
Leafs defenseman Mark Giordano says a good start will be key for the Leafs if they hope to put Game 4's disappointing effort behind them. He says despite getting dominated by the Lightning Sunday in a 7-3 loss, the team is still feeling positive.
You got to look at the opportunity we have as a team. I mean, we're playing obviously a team that's won back-to-back years, Stanley Cup champs, a great team. So we're in a pretty good spot, I would say, going into Game 5 with home ice advantage, tied in the series.
Leafs goaltender Jack Campbell was pulled in the second period of Game 4 after allowing 5 goals. Sheldon Keefe had a long discussion with his netminder before taking him out of the game, and he says he's continued to communicate with him and has no concerns about Campbell's readiness for Game 5.
Chatted with him yesterday, whether it was coming out of Game 2 or coming out of Game 4 here now. I think he's been in good spirits and has handled it really well. Obviously, his response in Game 3 was outstanding, so we're expecting more of the same.
It's a series that has already seen huge momentum swings from game to game, something Lightning coach John Cooper had trouble explaining.
I know the momentum has, I guess, been a little bit of a pendulum in this series, but I don't know, it's just been a weird series.
If the trend were to continue, this would be the Leafs' turn to steal the momentum, but Coach Keefe isn't counting on it.
I can't help but to expect and prepare for the fact that both teams will be going the rest of the way here, and as a result, things will be real tight.
Now, Keefe is also hoping to get a boost from the home crowd here at Scotiabank Arena. He talked after Game 1 about how amazing the fans were here. They showed up early, they were in their seats, they were loud, and the Leafs were able to get a bit of a boost from that energy that was coming down to ice level. And we've seen the fans have shown up early again today. They're outside, Dwight. They're ready to start coming in right now, and they're ready to start cheering for this Leafs team who is hoping to advance past the first round of the playoffs for the first time in 18 years.
Yeah, and the whole city is hoping with them. Thank you, Greg. We'll check in with you a bit later. And we'll check in with Colette right now. And another nice night for them out there in Maple Leaf Square, Colette.
Yeah, just amazing conditions. So this is the pattern that we're into that's going to hang in there for a little while. And I thought, yesterday we kind of looked at some of the temperatures around. I thought, let's expand that even further, because look at how that heat, extreme heat, extends well down towards the southern plains. Record-setting heat there. But what's interesting is it's starting to creep towards southwestern Ontario. So Chicago today into the 30s, Windsor mid-20s, but there is a little pocket. Let's take you on a little trip a bit further north. A little pocket here again today. Moosonee, Kapuskasing, the hot spots in Ontario tied at, in Canada actually at 29.4 degrees, so nearly 30 degrees there. And then here we have Toronto, 20 currently, but we were up to 22 degrees. But again, you see that little coloration of the contours of the temperature all around the lake due to that breeze. So you get that breeze coming off the lake. It's switched a little bit now, but in many cases we see it's coming off the lake towards Mississauga and the airport, Pearson, and that keeps the temperature down a little bit, but it is going to keep building. Each day we get a little bit warmer, and tomorrow we get more of the same, Dwight. So 11 tonight and 23 for that daytime high.
Neighbors to the north to share some of that warmth, Colette. Wow.
Yeah, sending it down our way.
Heading up to the warm north right now, leaders of the four main political parties faced off in North Bay this afternoon in the first debate of the provincial election campaign. Lisa Shing was there and has the highlights for you.
I listened to Doug Ford talk a second ago, and it feels to me like he's reading the script from last election campaign.
Right out of the gate, Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca and PC leader Doug Ford went head-to-head, providing some spicy exchanges.
You want to tax the mining industry? How do you think that's going to thrive? You tried that. You tried that last time, Stephen,
no, I know.
And you chased 300,000 jobs out of the province.
That's as Ford tried to tie Del Duca and NDP leader Andrea Horwath together.
Just go back a few years. When Ms. Horwath was running the province along with Mr. Del Duca. That's where they brought us to the brink.
The leaders covered issues affecting the north, including transit and infrastructure. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner was the only one to talk about the environment.
It is now or never to address the climate crisis, and we can do it in a way that addresses the cost of living crisis.
Affordability was also a big theme throughout and resulted in a lot of attacks on Del Duca's time in office.
He doesn't want anybody looking in the rearview mirror because they left a wreck back there in Northern Ontario.
Mr. Del Duca, you had your opportunity. and you failed. You were the Minister of Transportation. You didn't build absolutely nothing.
Go ahead, Mr. Ford.
Not surprisingly, the leaders targeted Ford too. They have to prove he isn't fit to lead the province again, and they would be the best alternative.
I'm about getting it done. I'm about building this
You're about your
province,
buddies,
and
Doug.
that's
That's what
exactly
you're
what
about.
we're
You're
going to do.
It's not about delivering progress. It's about making the richest, his friends, his political donors, even richer.
And more criticism of Ford as he skipped out on the post-debate Q&A with media.
It's awfully hard to answer questions on the fly when you can't read a script someone else has written for you.
It's an election. It's a time for people to, question their leaders, to understand, what motivates them.
There's now just one more opportunity for the leaders to face off, talk about the issue. There's now just one more opportunity for the leaders to talk about the issues that matter to voters and also get in a few jabs. The next and final leaders' debate is May 16th. Lisa Shing, CBC News, North Bay.
And nearly a week into the provincial election campaign, and both the NDP and the Liberals are focused on health care today. Both parties are trying to set themselves apart as the one that can improve the system for staff and patients. Lorenda Redekop now with what they are pledging to do.
We are at the brink of catastrophe. We really are.
After more than 2 years of the pandemic, the Ontario Nurses Association says the healthcare system needs support, especially with nurses.
We have new graduates coming out into the workforce who stay a day and say, I can't do this. And they leave. They're going to other provinces because the grass is greener, they think.
She joined 3 NDP candidates outside Women's College Hospital.
That an NDP government will scrap Bill 124 on day one of getting elected.
Across town in Etobicoke, near a closed urgent care clinic, 3 Liberal candidates made the same promise. All worked in healthcare through the pandemic. The Queensway Urgent Care Clinic closed temporarily in March 2020. The Liberals blame staff shortages. They railed against the Ford government on increased privatization in healthcare.
From COVID-19 testing to nursing homes, the Ford Conservatives are putting corporate profits first, leaving our hospitals and clinics struggling and our public healthcare heroes demoralized.
The PCs responded, calling it the same false attack from the NDP and Liberals every election campaign. On nurses, the PCs point to more than $400 million in promises from their budget to support nurses and PSWs, but did not directly respond regarding Bill 124.
We have a record budget this time around, and the bulk of it went towards healthcare. So it's going to be, I think, a tougher criticism for the opposition parties to make this time around.
While the Nurses Union is fighting for better pay and working conditions and calls the Ford government's response an insult, it also says this.
What we're seeing is a mass exodus, and it might not even make a difference with a different government.
Despite standing with the NDP today, she says she's not publicly supporting any one party, but wants healthcare made a priority. Lorenda Redekop.
It is considered one of the highest authorities on fine dining in the world, and now it's coming to Toronto. The French company Michelin is launching its guide here that ranks high-end restaurants. Our Morelli has reaction to the announcement.
Today, I have the great pleasure to announce the Michelin Guide's arrival in Toronto.
The announcement was met with fanfare at the Four Seasons Hotel. The French company is known globally for its star rating system. Receiving a star, considered to be one of the highest honors, the gold standard for fine dining. It's the first time the Michelin Guide has ventured into Canada, and some restaurants today are pleased.
I think it's going to be absolutely fabulous. I can see it bringing in tourism. I can see it exciting young chefs, restaurateurs, and I think it's going to be a good thing all around.
The designation follows an agreement made between Michelin and Destination Canada and Destination Toronto. It's being heralded as a win for the local restaurant scene, hit hard over the past 2 years of the pandemic.
And I think this is a very important day and that the timing couldn't be better.
A lot of people will see that as validation for the Toronto restaurant scene, certainly, and Canada as well.
This national food reporter and author says while the designation may put Canada's fine dining on the map, some aren't convinced the rigid criteria for Michelin align with what makes this city's food scene so great. It's diversity.
There's been a lot of criticism around Michelin as being kind of French-centric and definitely Eurocentric. And at the same time, over the last number of years, we've seen so much really good conversation, certainly here in Canada and across North America, around diversity of dining.
Obviously, it's a great program, but it doesn't affect me personally.
Because Michelin isn't known to venture to smaller restaurants like this one on Roncesvalles, a lukewarm reaction here, and uncertainty whether it'll actually benefit the scene as a whole.
I hope they prove me wrong. I do. Because as I said, I really feel that there are so many great restaurants in this city, and a lot of times they're in the local neighborhoods, and I wish that they would go out to visit them.
As for what restaurants will be rated, diners will have to wait till the fall to see who gets a coveted star. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
It is day 2 of a strike for thousands of commercial carpenters in this province. Members of the Ontario chapter of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America began the strike action Monday. Union reps say affordability is the main issue.
When we had meetings with the members, and specifically most recently, issues of rent came up, housing, groceries. So the challenges that all Ontarians are going through, our members are facing that exact same challenges.
Members were out picketing this morning downtown. The job action has had an immediate impact on construction projects right across the province as the industry enters its busiest season. The union says it hopes to be back at the bargaining table on Thursday. Ukraine is enduring more destruction as Russia's war on its neighbor enters day 75, but there are also stories of heroism and bravery across the embattled nation. Briar Stewart reports from Kiev.
Liza Chernichenko points to where 4 bullets pierced her legs and feet. She was shot 10 days ago while trying to save 2 men who were injured in an attack in the Donetsk region. The 15-year-old got behind the wheel of a car and started driving them to the hospital. As I was coming out from under the bridge, there, like chess pieces, were many landmines. After making it through that, she says the Russians started shooting.
What was going through your mind as you were driving out?
There was no fear, there was no shock, she said, just a determination to go forward. Doctors put a steel plate into her right leg, and on her left foot, she's now missing her baby toe. But she survived when so many others haven't. At least 1 person was killed yesterday in Odessa when missiles hit a warehouse and this shopping mall. Since the war began, the United Nations has recorded nearly 3,400 civilian deaths, but officials warn the true number is much, much higher.
The big black hole is really Mariupol, where it's been difficult for us to fully access and to get fully corroborated information. We estimate that there are thousands of deaths that have happened there, civilians who have died due to hostilities.
Mariupol resident Alina Beskrovna sheltered with her mother and cats in a basement during the first month of the war.
This is part of Grad missile that was fired right into our house.
When they fled the city 2 weeks later, she took the missile fragment with her because she wanted hard evidence of the weapons Russia is using.
But when I look at those pieces, I think of the civilians who were just murdered.
Beskrovna is in Denmark and waiting for a visa to come to Canada, but she hasn't been able to reach her father since the end of February. He also lived in Mariupol. Searching for him and for answers isn't easy in a now shattered community. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Kiev.
As an outgunned Ukraine defends against the much larger Russian army in the east, NATO allies are holding military exercises in the Black Sea near the coast of Romania. The CBC crew was invited on board a ship as special forces carried out their drills. Chris Brown has more.
We're on a Romanian naval ship just off the coast of Romania in the Black Sea. We've been invited to watch and, as you can hear, listen to a military exercise. That's a helicopter hovering overhead, and off to the stern of the ship there's a number of smaller vessels containing special forces members. They've come from the United States, they've come from Britain, and they've come from Romania as part of Operation Trojan Footprint. It's a huge military exercise taking part all across the eastern flank of this alliance, and this particular portion is the maritime section of it. What we've seen in the last few months involving NATO and deploying its forces on its eastern border with Russia is almost unprecedented. There's now some 40,000 troops at the ready facing Russia. That's 10 times more than what there were before Russia invaded Ukraine back in February. The whole purpose of these exercises is to ensure that not only are all these countries working together and being highly coordinated, but also even within the militaries, even within Romania, for example, that the people who fly the helicopters and the special forces and so forth are all talking to each other, because as we've seen as part of this war in Ukraine, that's been one of the big criticisms of Russia's army about the poor performance and the lack of coordination. We are, in fact, not that far from Ukraine here. 120 kilometers up the coast is Snake Island. It's been one of the most hotly contested pieces of land in Ukraine. And of course, NATO is not part of this war. And the message is NATO's troops are close by, they're well trained and ready to intervene if necessary. Chris Brown, CBC News, in the Black Sea off Romania.
Last year, Ottawa created special immigration measures to help skilled Hong Kong residents work in Canada and apply for permanent residency more easily. The move came partly in response to the deteriorating human rights situation in their city and increasing crackdown on pro-democracy activists. But now some applicants here are worried that a small detail could disqualify them. Matthew Kupfer explains.
The 2019 protests in Hong Kong and the subsequent national security law raised concerns from critics and the Canadian government about human rights in the territory. CBC News is protecting the identity of this woman who left Hong Kong because she's concerned about political reprisals. She and her boyfriend, who was arrested but not charged during the 2019 protests, were relieved to come to Canada when open work permits became available. But now they've hit a stumbling block on their path to permanent residency.
We were able to get an easier pathway, but we cannot get through to the end. And it's we're kept in the middle of somewhere, and then we don't know what is the next step or what should we do next.
That's because applicants for permanent residency from Hong Kong need to have a post-secondary qualification that's no more than 5 years old. They both got their degrees in 2016. While the federal government has said they can apply in other ways, she's worried about delays.
We are still scared, and we don't want to just go back to Hong Kong.
Community Family Services of Ontario is trying to help people navigate the Hong Kong pathways. They say the concern is real.
The 2016 and 2017 graduates are sort of stuck between two doors. So this is the first gap that I would see, that I think it's, in terms of policy, there is a calculation error.
While open work permits got people to Canada faster, this immigration law expert says it was unlikely the situation in Hong Kong could be addressed with temporary status. Jamie Liu would like the process streamlined.
It really puts people in very precarious and temporary situations where there's no certainty, and that they're having to wait and apply for a cascading line of applications.
The federal government says the policy allows people to extend their temporary status within Canada while other applications are being processed. Matthew Kupfer, CBC News, Ottawa.
It is a British ceremony steeped in tradition where the government sets out its agenda with a speech during the opening of Parliament. But instead of Queen Elizabeth, it was her son who stepped forward today to deliver it. Tom Perry explains what prompted the change and how the day unfolded.
This was a Queen's speech without the Queen. Yesterday, Buckingham Palace issued a statement saying that Her Majesty was suffering from episodic mobility problems. So today, we saw Prince Charles step in for his mother, deliver this speech, laying out the government's agenda, building the economy, protecting the National Health Service, things like that. This is the first time in nearly 60 years that Queen Elizabeth has been unable to open Parliament. The last time it happened was 1963. She was pregnant at the time. And there was some interesting symbolism going on here today. Prince Charles was not sitting in the Queen's throne. He was not wearing royal robes. He was not wearing the imperial crown, although the imperial crown was there. That's because the Queen remains the sovereign. Charles is purely acting in a temporary way because she's unwell. It is, though, interesting to look at the transition that's going on from Queen Elizabeth to her heir. She's been handing off more and more of her official duties to Charles and to Prince William in recent years. We're seeing Prince Charles and Camilla come to Canada next week. The last time the Queen was actually seen at a public function was at a memorial for her late husband, Prince Philip, back in March. The next big thing coming up on the royal calendar is next month, when Britain is going to be marking the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth, her 70 years on the throne. And the question remains, how many of those events will the Queen be able to take part in? Tom Perry, CBC News, London.
Sorry to make you follow the Queen, Colette. I didn't line up the show. Sorry.
It's all good. And you know what I want to follow up with is earlier I was showing some of the heat, not just the heat we're experiencing, but, you know, that goes all the way down to the southern plains and into the desert southwest where they have wildfire problems again. And the thing is, these are likely to just keep spreading. So all these areas you see in red, that's red flag warning for the fire weather that's happening here. So it even makes its way over towards the panhandle of Oklahoma, southwest Kansas, into parts of Texas. But primarily it's Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and into Nevada. And all the ingredients are there. It's not just the heat. It's very, very low humidity. And the fuel needed, everything has been so dry. So all the vegetation is just, unfortunately, excellent for fueling these fires. So that's the situation there. And that may make you think, okay, but what about Canada? For us in Ontario, obviously, it's something we'll watch as the season carries on. But at BC, with some of the conditions we've seen in recent years, well, actually, what's happening here in British Columbia is there's a real delay to the snow melt because temperatures have been cool. So the concern here actually turns more towards flooding. And that's what's carrying on for the next kind of month or so, is just watching that situation there. All right, now let's take us to our situation right here. Not as much active weather to talk about, which is a good thing, but it gives me some time then to show you what's happening elsewhere on our continent. So still some of these cooler temperatures, we're seeing that flow coming off the lake. So Hamilton 16, although we've had readings in Ontario in the mid and upper 20s. System that wants to bring these thunderstorms in and around has to go around that ridge of high pressure. So watch how it looks like it's going to be swinging towards the east, but instead it really just kind of breaks apart. And all that we're likely to inherit from this is a little bit of extra fair weather cloud at times. Mostly we are just still talking about dry conditions and talking about sunny conditions too. So those temperatures for tonight, some areas still seeing some single digits, likely though that we're going to keep that to 11 degrees for that overnight temperature for Pearson, for Toronto as well. So those double digits. I want to show you what's happening here with our forecast moving forward. We have several days here, string of them we're putting together of nice conditions. It will become rather dry. It will be good to get some rain into the weekend. But what's going to be happening is things become a little more humid. And as they do at the end of the week and into the weekend, that air is more buoyant and we get into that risk, getting a little trigger coming through and seeing some scattered showers or thunderstorms showing up, ruining the party or not, because we do need it.
Yes, the flowers needed, and I feel like there was no break in between. We went right from that wind chill to the humidex.
I know, it's just the way it's been this spring, right?
It really has. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
A new interactive art installation outside of Ripley's Aquarium is shining a light on just how wasteful we can be. It's called Turn Off the Plastic Tap, and its message is simple.
We've just seen single-use plastic consumption increase year after year after year. We talk about cleaning up the oceans, we talk about recycling more, but at the end of the day, one of the things that we really need to talk about is how we address plastic production.
This massive faucet is made up of thousands of everyday items like water bottles, coffee cups, plastic bags, and more. Ripley's was chosen as the host for the sculpture because of how harmful plastics are for our oceans. Canada produces more than 2.8 million tons of plastic waste annually. As we head to break, let's take a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX closed down by 114 points. The Dow also falling by 60 points. The dollar trading lower at 76.81 cents US. We'll be right back. Shortages of baby formula are being reported across the U.S. Some brands are sold out, and some retailers are limiting how much formula people can buy at one time. That is raising questions about the possibility of similar situations in Canada. Alison Northcott has more.
Hungry? 7-month-old Lucas needs special formula due to a severe type of protein allergy, but his mother says it's become harder and harder to find.
I have exhausted all the pharmacies in our area. I have called 40 minutes away, 50 minutes away. I've transferred my prescription multiple times, and now nobody has anything left.
Experts say that's linked to a formula shortage in the U.S. brought on by supply chain problems and a recall of some powdered formulas by Abbott Nutrition after complaints of possible bacterial infections in infants, including 2 who died.
It's about 40% full.
This Montreal pharmacy has formula available, but there are holes on the shelves.
The effect of this primary shortage that's, one of the top products, so we rely on all the other products. And those ones too have become back ordered. So we're trying to really ramp it up and see if we can substitute.
In the U.S., a firm that does real-time product data analysis showed 40% of baby formulas are out of stock. It has some parents there scrambling and stockpiling. Here in Canada, while some large retailers say they aren't seeing widespread shortages, others are having some issues with stock.
We are seeing sort of spotty local things. So a couple of stores in one particular neighborhood, and we're seeing a little bit more of that around the more specialty formulas.
Like the one Lucas uses.
This is a can of Similac. It's one of my remaining few.
Lindsay Ward traveled to the U.S. last weekend to buy more and has turned to social media for help too. Despite the anxiety for parents, experts say don't panic.
Our supply chains, even though they are very fragile, the retailers, the manufacturers have learned how to bounce back, how to supply from different sources.
Abbott Nutrition says it's working to replenish supply, shipping product in from its facility in Ireland. In the meantime, experts say there are other brands available, and parents should talk to their pediatricians to find the right alternatives. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
What started as a best-of-7 series is now a best-of-3. The Leafs and Lightning are tied 2 wins apiece, and our team is back at home. Let's go back to Greg Ross at Maple Leaf Square with the fans. Greg, not long until puck drop.
Yeah, and I can tell you a very good sign here tonight, Dwight, is the fact that the fans are once again showing up here early. There are a ton of fans inside the building, and this place out here, Maple Leaf Square, has been packed since they opened the gates. And you can see these guys were the first in line. They got here. What time did you guys get here?
The first one, baby. You know we got to come and support the Leafs. 2-2. We're trying to break that tiebreaker, baby. Let's go.
What time did you guys get here tonight?
About 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
It's never too early.
Yeah, we're always dedicated for Leafs Nation. This is Leafs Nation.
They got here 3 hours before game time to stand outside here in Maple Leaf Square. They're excited. A lot of people wearing their different costumes. What's this outfit all about?
Listen, we're here to support our team. Leafs are going to go to the Stanley Cup this time. Woo!
Leaf sunglasses. You got the Austin Matthews cutout head. And, I mean, are you guys a little nervous after that performance in game 4?
We're coming back tonight. We're going to take on number 6 right here.
The Leafs need to come back. They need to bounce back in a big way. I know some of these fans are nervous. They're just not admitting it. Are you a little bit nervous after what happened in game 4?
They tried their best, honestly, but we just need our defense more aggressive.
They're going to come out flying tonight.
They need to come out flying tonight. There's no doubt about it. The Leafs need a good start. The team that has scored the first goal has won every game of this series. You know how important that quick start is for this team.
This team right here and his fan base is unmatched. And I'm telling you right now, Jesse from the Square is here. The whole world's here.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Everybody's here. Everybody's here.
And we're going to win. We know we're taking
These fans are confident here. Hopefully the Leafs can feel the energy. They talked about how important the fans were in game 1. The Leafs need them more than ever tonight, Dwight. There is no doubt about it. This is a pivotal game 5. The winner of this game will be 1 win away from taking the series. There's no doubt the Leafs need a big one tonight, Dwight.
They really do. Thank you, Greg. Colette, I have to admit, I am a little nervous.
I know, I have a lot of nervous energy too. I was thinking that earlier. All right, we got to channel that, like all of us channeling that. Well, I mean, you saw the evidence of the weather pattern we're in just there with all those fans standing under beautiful blue skies and dry conditions and mild too. So there's that ridge of high pressure and why you see very little cloud cover. The action is to the north and it's going to skirt around that way. Overnight tonight, 11 degrees. It will be a little cooler. St. Catharines, Hamilton, Markham, you'll be in the single digits, but still milder conditions tomorrow, even warmer, 23 with mostly sunny skies. And again, away from the lakes, there's still going to be folks where you're going to be in the mid-20s, and we'll probably see some upper 20s again tomorrow as well. But our heat building for Toronto too, right?
Hopefully our Leafs look good like that forecast. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. We leave you with a live shot of Maple Leaf Square where fans are getting ready for puck drop. Have a great night. Go